Jays fans call home.
Sportsnet, home of the Blue Jays.
You're watching Rogers TV.
But also to advocate and promote people from the audience, time permitting, to make sure your questions are answered. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our member, Jane Brigby, and Jane is going to read our land acknowledgement.
I think I can speak loud enough for everyone to hear. Land acknowledgement statement. We want to acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. Today, many Indigenous peoples continue to call this land home and act as its stewards, and this responsibility extends to all peoples to share and care for this land for generations to come.
Thank you, Jane. So just backing up a moment, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce myself, first of all. So my name is Cheryl Taylor, and I'm currently president of CFUW Kincardine and District. And I'd like to acknowledge my co-chair, Linda Bowers. And Linda Bowers is currently our secretary for CFUW Kincardine and District, and she's also the moderator for tonight's event. So to just give you a quick rundown about the background of CFUW, in 1919, when CFUW received its federation, so we are a national organization and also international organization. But our purpose really is supporting women and young girls in their education, promoting the status of women throughout, and also being a strong advocate for the causes of which we are here tonight to learn more from the political format, and being the suffragettes that they were back in the beginning of time, we carry that baton forward, saying you've got to vote. We want to promote people, that's your democratic right, and you need to vote. At this time then, I'd also then like to introduce our panel, our guests for this evening. In no particular order, I'll start closest to me. So we have James Rice, our Liberal candidate. And next to James, we have Melanie Barrett, and Melanie's our NDP candidate. And then we have Ben Lobb with the Progressive Conservative Party. And next to Ben, we had opportunity to meet today Caesar Salad Pella. And Caesar is an independent that's registered and been a registered independent since the beginning of April. And just a few house rules then for tonight. So anyone with a cell phone, we'd ask that you either turn it off or make sure that it is muted. And as Linda would say if she had the microphone right now, the first time we hear it, that person is paying the rent for the hall tonight. Okay? Washrooms, there is an accessible washroom at the back of the room if you need it, and there's also a washroom out in the hall. At tonight's events, we're looking at wanting to get things wrapped up about 8:45, so questions from the audience if we're coming forward then we just want to be mindful of everyone's time, and everyone has a drive home tonight, so we'd like to kind of keep things on schedule. So at this moment, I will turn it over to Linda Bowers, our moderator.
Thank you, Madam President.
I don't know if I need this. Is it on? Okay, we'll use it. Thanks. Okay, we'll use this. Just so everyone knows, Rogers is here this evening filming. The broadcast will air on Thursday with availability on their YouTube channel on Friday. So you're all aware. I did not get any waivers. We're just doing it.
Cheeky.
The format tonight will be that each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves. And then we have 9 prepared questions, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond in the rotation of Linda's choice. The timekeeper, Jennifer, has 2 cards. Is anyone colorblind?
That's a good
Good.
question. No, that's good.
At the 30 seconds to the end mark, so 30 seconds at the end of your time, before the end of your time, Jennifer will raise the green card, and when it's time to stop, the red card, and you will stop. Terry says I can turn your microphone off. Terry, I'm so glad you're here. Good. The questions were submitted by our members and members of the public. We have vetted them. Some of the questions have 2 to 3 points to them, and when we look at the questions, you'll understand what I mean by that. I am going to pass the questions to you. No cheating. So here we go. The one candidate that could not be with us this evening, Gregory McLean, has asked us to read his statement. So I will read his statement as his introduction. All right? Mr. Cesar Senate.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now, Mr. President, if you would pick the name out of the basket. Caesar will begin the introductions. You have 3 minutes.
Running. Good evening, everyone, and including my co-candidates, whom I've been listening to as to their party leaders, finding that we speak somewhat different political languages. They seem mostly to focus on pragmatic matters such as emergency measures to help every economic sector, from agriculture to automotive, to counter the Trump tariffs, on deep geological repository considerations, on social housing or real estate free market policies to remedy homelessness. There certainly is a time and a place for such tactical considerations, but that time, in my opinion, is not now, because we have much bigger strategic concerns. The wheels are literally falling off the United States of America, as the US is not just in a crisis, but in full social devolution, because millions of disheartened Americans have turned to a modern-day snake oil salesman to try and recover from their dearth of vision and hope in their political institutions. A lack of hope that ultimately stems from the adversarial nature of their political process. You see, in 1935, Smedley Butler was the most decorated U.S. Marine general, having led many American wars from 1898 to 1931. After he retired, he realized, he said, that he had been a puppet for imperialist American interests that had no respect whatsoever for human life. Butler wrote, "War is a racket, warning against the danger that the military-industrial complex could take over American democracy." A warning echoed by then President Franklin D. Roosevelt, but in vain. Today, 3 multinationals, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, own 89% of the American stock market's S&P 500, which aggregates 50 trillion of U.S. capital wealth, basically 80% of America. In the face of this reality, politics becomes a game for deluded fools. What about Canada? In 1992, David Smith was the chair of the Liberal Party Election Committee who organized the 93 electoral massacre when Chrétien wiped out the Maroni Conservatives. Smith asked me to be a Liberal candidate in Toronto, where I was anchoring primetime TV news. But I replied, thank you, but no thank you. I respect our people and our democracy too much to simply jump on a winning bandwagon. The same respect for our society and for the future of our children has led me here tonight, because we need to take a different route for this Titanic that we are all on. We need to re-evolutionize politics.
Thank you, Caesar.
Almost.
James, thank you.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. My name is James Rice, and I'm here as part of Mark Carney's Liberal team, running to be your member of Parliament in Huron-Bruce. Oh, I'm getting a tech check here. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. So yes, I'm James Rice, running as part of Mark Carney's Liberal team to be your member of Parliament in Huron-Bruce. The simple truth is that our country is under attack. Canada's at war. We're not at war with some far-off country that we can easily ignore. We're at war with our strongest trading partner and the country that we're attached to. Donald Trump and his threats and tariffs threaten everything that we've built for our communities and families, from public health care, public education, right to our border, which he calls an imaginary line. That includes our Great Lakes that we're very proud of here in Kincardine. Mark Carney is the man for the moment. He's a fighter with a vision that's helped us through tough times before. When Canada's at war, we need a fighter at the helm, and that's who we get with Mark Carney. And that's what you get with me as your member of Parliament in Huron-Bruce. I'm born and raised in Bruce County. I consider Kincardine to be my hometown, so I'm always happy to be here, of course. Now, I grew up through the Children's Aid System. I was a Crown Ward. So I grew up through adversity. But I broke down every barrier that life threw at me and came out stronger for it. And now I'm a lawyer. I'm a Crown attorney who fights for justice every day. I'm ready to use my skills and my drive to be your fierce advocate in Ottawa and make sure that Huron-Bruce doesn't get lost in the noise. In the tumultuous time that we have coming in the next few years, I'm here for you. I'm ready to use my skills and my drive to be your advocate in Ottawa. I'm here for you, your family, our community, and our country. If you vote for James Rice, you will get that fierce advocate and make sure that Huron-Bruce is always represented at the table where decisions are being made. But I'm also a dad, and I'm afraid of what the future of our country and this world looks like for my kids and all your kids. That's at the forefront of my decision making. That's why I'm in this race. And I'm excited to contrast our views and ideas up here so you can all see the vision of Canada that all of our parties have for you. Our country only exists as long as we're willing to fight for it. Our democracy exists only as long as we're willing to fight for it. I'm here to fight for it on your behalf and for Canada, because Canada is always going to be worth it, and there will always be a Canada. Thank you.
I was asked before someone in the audience to have the candidates stand as they answered their questions. My apologies. So for the last two people, it's up to you whether you stand or remain seated, but during the questions you will be asked to stand, all right?
No pressure.
And we have some extra chairs up here, folks. Front row seats go free. Or we can bring them back to you. Lots of chairs. Come on, ladies, don't stand. Sam, you're welcome to sit too. Here you go, Jan, right up front. Jan Johnston, school board trustee. Okay. Next up for introductions is Mr. Benlob.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Before I start my comments, I'd like to congratulate the U13 Kincardine Canucks team that won the provincial championship yesterday. That's a tremendous achievement. I won one when I was in high school, and It's memories forever and friendships forever. So congratulations to those young guys. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone for putting this on, the volunteers, the chamber, and thank you for everybody for attending here tonight. It's great to see such a great crowd. I'm Ben Lobb, obviously, and I'm your Conservative candidate for Huron-Bruce. Like many of you, I am deeply concerned about the rising cost of living. Families, seniors, new Canadians are trying to build a better life, but many of them are struggling to make ends meet, and it's not getting any easier. Canada's at an inflection point. Canadians are simultaneously facing a retracting economy while grappling with rising consumer prices. In the past 10 years, our federal debt has reached an all-time high, $1.2 trillion. And in the last 10 years, more debt has been added to the federal budget than in the past history of Canada. We've had a government who's been too focused on printing cash, meaning more money, chasing fewer goods, services, which have been driven up to inflation levels that we haven't seen in decades. To combat this, Conservatives are proposing common sense policies that put more money in the back of your pocket while ensuring government lives within its means, just like the rest of us have to. A couple of examples of our proposal is a 15% across the board income tax cut, GST off a new home, permanently cut the carbon tax, including for farmers, which is currently not the case, and a Canada capital gains reinvestment tax credit, so that if you sell an asset or a business and you reinvest it back into Canada, you won't be charged capital gains. In addition to our economy, we've heard Canadians loudly and clearly. We need to restore safe communities, provide adequate support for our farmers, and build homes people can afford, and cut red tape to remove the administrative burden. On April 28th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you, and I hope we have a great debate tonight. Thank you.
Melanie, I invite you now to take the mic.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't want to be the odd one out on this one yet. Okay. Okay, so, hi, I'm Melanie Brett. Well, you know what, I can't see anyone, it's back, you're right. Standing is better. Okay, that's fine. I'll stand. I got it. That's good.
You're hired.
Actually, this is something I did for 4 years in high school, so let me add it. Okay, hi, I'm Melanie Barrett. I'm the NDP candidate for Huron-Bruce. I'm very new at this, so bear with me. I brought my binder of, oops, my brain cramped. I might have to go back to it and look at it a few times. Oh, okay, so the question sheet is saying, they're asking, why are we here? Why am I running? Why do I think, I'm the person you should be voting for? And honestly, it's hard to say, right? Everyone makes such great promises. Everyone says they're the best. Everyone says, oh, I'm the one. But the thing is that we're all pretty good. It's true, we're all pretty good. And so what you need to look at is the history of the parties. Not just me, but my party history, not just James or Ben, although Caesar's independent, I guess. We'll just judge him on his own merits. Right, so you gotta look at what people have promised and what has been delivered. The NDP was founded by the people, for the people. And back in the day, Tommy Douglas was the one who set it off getting universal health care. So thanks, Tommy. That's up to you. This is the universal health care that we all still love and are still fighting to protect. And every NDP leader has tried to do something better, has tried to make something better for everybody. And, we haven't really had a lot of chance. We haven't had a lot of votes. We haven't had a lot of MPs. So we haven't really been able to prove ourselves, the other two parties have. So I can make a lot of promises, but everyone always says, oh, well, the NDP's never been government. How can we trust you? How can we know you're going to do what you're going to say? Well, with 25 MPs, we managed to get dental care. Thank you, Jagmeet. 9 million people have now had their teeth fixed. That was a key party platform in the original, 10 years ago was it? I forget, when Trudeau was first elected. He promised dental care. Nothing, years and years and years. Until finally, the NDP stood up and said, hey, no, not cool. You guys are, you guys are almost done your term. We have to get this done. So we need to see hope for people. And I think the NDP provides that. And yeah, I'm a believer. I've seen it happen. I've been volunteering for 20 years, spending time on the phones, spending time knocking on doors. And what I've seen is that the NDP brings hope. And I think we need a bit of that right now. So, you can listen to the pretty promises and look at the track record, right? The NDP brings things, these two slash.
We have 9 prepared questions. As I said earlier, some of them have 2 parts to them. I will read the questions. The candidates have the questions in front of them. I will read the questions out so that the audience will know what they're going to be addressing. The first question has to do with the cost of living. What concrete steps will you take to address the rising cost of living and housing affordability for Canadian families? And what plans and policies does your party have to improve the wages and working conditions for minimum wage earners, as well as low rental housing? And we will begin with James, please.
Thank you. So yes, the question, what concrete steps will you take to address the rising cost of living and housing affordability for Canadian families? So this is what's at the top of mind for everyone, I think, in this election. Everything that we're promising, everything that we want to build for this country depends on a strong, booming economy. Mark Carney and the Liberal Party have the best plan, a strong plan, to make Canada into the superpower that we know it can be and build the strongest economy in the G7. The first concrete step that Prime Minister Mark Carney took within minutes of being sworn in was to remove the divisive carbon tax. It wasn't working. It was putting up prices. He got rid of that. It's gone. We all saw that this week, April 1st, when the prices of gas, home heating, and most goods dropped with that gone. But beyond that, to increase wages, to make the economy work for everyone, we need to build up our economy. That first means fighting Donald Trump and these tariffs, which threatened to derail our economy. That means protecting our industries. And that means building this great country. Canada is the greatest country in the world. And we're going to build it, continue building it up for everyone. We're going to support the Canadian forces. We're going to reinvest and rearm the Canadian forces. We're going to build Canadian Forces vehicles and equipment with Canadian steel and aluminum built by Canadian workers in Canadian factories. We're going to build pipelines across the country to move Canadian energy to market. We're going to, and in terms of low rental housing, I'm running out of time, but we're going to get the government back into the business of home building. We've done it before. After World War II, we built housing. We're going to build things in this country again, and we're going to build Canada strong with the Build Canada Homes Agency. I'm excited for that prospect to build Canada to the strongest economy in the G7 and build a country that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for the question on the cost of living. Obviously, it's front in mind on all Canadians. And first thing we need to do, if you look at the statistics, over 50% of a household budget goes towards taxes at all levels. So the first thing we're going to do is lower taxes, 15% across the board. That's going to provide some relief. In addition to that, we're going to eliminate the carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax, the carbon tax on farmers, it is a source of inflation. What do I mean by that? At each and every step along the way, those costs are passed along to the consumer. We know that. Businesses have told us that, and especially on agriculture, whether it's the heating of barns, whether it's the drying of grain, it seems exceptionally unfair to farmers that grow our food, that feed our nation, to not be able to be charging them a carbon tax while not giving them any credit for the environmental good that farmers do. In regards, so that would cover cost of living, unlocking powerful paychecks. We really need to get the economy moving. The last 10 years, Canada has not been known as a place to do business. The GDP per capita is amongst the lowest of the OECD. I think it's 52nd. And so we need to do more to encourage growth, to encourage investment in Canada. And just take, for example, processing plants, pork processing plants, beef processing plants. I think that's over 2 million hogs get shipped to the US each and every year to be processed. They should be processed in Ontario and then shipped around the world so that we gain the economic advantage. That's a couple things we could do in 2 minutes or less. Thank you.
Caesar?
To answer the question, I would like to refocus a moment. James and Ben have... Thank you, sir. James and Ben have outlined a number of worthy initiatives. But I think that there is a problem below that, and that is the outrageous, and I will call immoral, distribution of social wealth in society. 57 Canadian billionaires in 2023 together owned $245 billion. In 2024, they went from 245 to 315 billion. That's an increase of 29% in a year. How many people in the audience had their wages increased by 29%? The point is that we are trying to cover our social costs the way that we try to cover ourselves with a blanket that is too small. You cover your feet and your shoulders get cold, you tuck it under your butt and your belly is out. We have to increase the size of the blanket. There are brochures that I printed out that include 50 years of scratching my head over our social and political concerns. My first exam in political science goes back to just after the dinosaurs roamed the earth in the mid-70s. Have a look. The bottom line is that we need what I call a fair, a Robin Hood levy. You take from the rich and you distribute to the needy. And that is worthy about how to raise minimum wages. You can't keep on raising them because, many small businesses have got only so much room, but you can take from the rich and give an integration of $5 to the ones who make 17.
So, the question of housing. It's a little bit like an octopus, isn't it? It's coming at you from all different corners. There's affordable housing, there's people trying to buy for the first time, people getting rent-evicted, and these come from all levels of government. It's provincial and it's federal. So the problem with housing is that, let's go back to 2008. Come back with me on this one. 2008, when it was the big crash economically, and Canada was it was a leader in that. Thank you, Mark Kearney. He kept the lending rate low, he kept the inflation low, he kept sort of the middle class bumping along way better than the States did. Now there's a problem though with what he did, and this kind of has come forward to today. Because he did keep the lending rate low, And so that made Canada very, very tempting for international investors. Continues to be to this day. So international investors found Canada to be a really great place to place their money whenever else it was going down. They started buying up houses. Houses were a great investment. They knew it was going to go up. Has since then. Hasn't come down. And now everyone above a certain age who has bought a house is now held hostage by the high prices. If we do anything to change the high prices, that's going to mean a lot of people are in trouble. But everyone under 30 can't buy. Oh. Go. Okay, sorry, speaking too quietly. I should yell into this, I guess. All right, so everyone under 30 can't buy. Everyone under 30 feels like there's nothing for them. Why should they vote? Why should they come out? They can't even find a place to live. My daughter is spending $2,000 for one bedroom, shared with a friend. Yeah. I didn't give any answers.
Ladies at the back, there are still some chairs. Do you want me to bring them back to you?
Yeah, we got chairs here.
I feel guilty sitting where you're standing. Okay, thank you. I'll ask one more time. Question 3. Whose phone was that? They got to pay the rent. Is that yours?
That wasn't my phone, it was an alarm.
Cheryl's buying. Doesn't matter. Made a noise. The question that I'm going to ask you now to contemplate is regarding universal child care, dental care, and pharmacare. Progress towards a universal child care system, dental program, and a pharmacare program must continue. This is a two-part question. What will happen to these programs if your party is elected? What steps will your party take, and how much has your party budgeted to expand access to high-quality, affordable childcare, dental care, and pharmacare? And to start this round off, we'll go, Ben, please.
I don't need the microphone, but I think probably it works better if they're watching at home. So with pharmacare, the dental care program, and the universal child care program, the Conservative Party is committed to maintaining those programs. That's been our commitment during the election. However, if I was going to provide any critiques at all, especially on the dental care program, all the provinces provide a basic form of dental care. It's different in each province, and I think it would have been much better for the Liberal Party and the Liberal government at the time to meet with all the first ministers and the first health ministers and really establish what they thought is the baseline for dental care in this country, and they didn't do that. So now we have kind of a piecemeal program that does provide, but it could have been a much, much better system. And in regards to the universal child care program, I get emails all the time with independent private daycare operators that are concerned about their future with this program. And that's the truth, and they're from our region, okay? And so we don't want to create a program that ices out private daycares, which provide great services and great benefits to families. The other issue is, and especially in this area and other areas where there's a lot of shift work, is that the program as it's currently set up is really meant for people that work a day shift. It doesn't really provide for afternoons and nights, and that's something that the Conservative Party will look to do, is to broaden it and give more families more choice to work with their work schedule. Thank you.
I wasn't paid very much money when those were created. Caesar, would you please respond?
Ben has outlined some pretty important aspects of some of these issues. However, over the years and nearly a decade of political journalism, I rarely found the parties short of good ideas. The problem has always been for me a shortage of goodwill and desire to reach a compromise for the good of the nation and the good of the province and the good of the community. Adversarial politics means that beyond the nice words, I've always seen it behind closed doors played as a gambling game played with three hands, one on the table, one under the table, and a third one behind the back. I've seen very little, if any, honesty and goodwill in political party circuses. The problem is that we got to turn around, as I said, politics from an adversarial game to a competitive, yes, but synergistic game. The way we try and run our families, where my boss and I, she kicks me under the table sometimes and I kick her and we disagree, and the kids have their say, but at the end of the day we try and reach in earnest and in good faith a compromise for the good of the whole family. It's not what happens for our nation. We have to turn that around. Whether it's about childcare or dental, definitely there are services that are needed and need to continue. I bring you back to the problem of the blanket that's too small. We got to increase the revenue, and that is done by taking from the ones who have more than they need, and immorally so. We are based on a social contract in our democracy, and that is based on respect for life. There is no respect when there is that appropriation of wealth at the top.
Melanie? Remember to yell into the mic.
Yell into the mic. Okay. That goes against every fiber in my being. I will try. Okay. So 3 minutes to answer three very interesting, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to answer three questions. Let's go. All right. So universal child care, dental care, and pharma care, how do we pay for it? Taxes, obviously. My mic isn't working. Are we good? Okay. Oh, good. All right. Okay. So taxes, obviously, this is how we pay for it. But the problem with taxes is how it's applied. Where do the taxes go? Where do the taxes come from? It depends upon the party. It depends upon their priorities, right? Some parties like to prioritize businesses, and they give their taxes to the businesses. Some parties prioritize businesses, and they give them to the businesses. And in the end, what's left is the people out here who aren't businesses. We're all just struggling to get by. 15, 20 years ago, when I had to take my daughter to childcare, that was 2 hours of my day that I had to work for her to be in childcare. So yeah, that was a lot. That was a big drain on my family. We had no money. We were living in a housing co-op. We were driving a car I got from my grandpa. And that 2 hours a day that I had to spend on the amount of money that had to go towards looking after my daughter while I was working, we could have really used that. So yeah, $10 a day childcare, it would be a great help to families. And yeah, there are some absolutely lovely, lovely people who do childcare in the community. I took my daughter to them. I took my daughter to large places, small places, people. But you know, what we need is to make sure that the taxes go where they're supposed to go, not where they're not supposed to go. No more, no less.
So for universal child care, dental care, and pharmacare, of course, the Liberal Party will proudly support those, as these are all Liberal government achievements. So,
By the NDP.
pushed by the NDP, we may have had similar interests, but these were Liberal government policies. So, Someone else may want to take credit for that, but the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. And Melody talked about, look at the history. Let's look at the history. We would have had childcare in 2004 if the NDP hadn't partnered with the Conservatives to take down Paul Martin's Liberal government. So I would have been able to use universal childcare instead of my children being the first ones to use it. So let's remember the history. As well, Melody's correct. These are paid for by taxes. So although the Conservatives say now, during a campaign, they'd maintain it, remember that for the last 2 years, Pierre Poilievre has been calling this a, quote, slush fund. And now that they realize the position's unpopular, pivot to, oh, we'll keep it. But when you talk about cutting taxes and hating debt, what's the only solution? To reduce spending. And what is going to be the first thing cut? These expensive programs that people rely on. The Liberal Party will always champion these things. Dental care is health care. We need a national program, which we now have. Childcare is vital, as is pharmacare. The Liberal Party brought these in. The Liberal Party will defend these. And the Liberal Party understands that Canadians rely on these programs. We will always defend them. And so what will happen if elected? They'll stay the way they are and be enhanced. They can only get better. Every program can certainly get better. We'll look at that. We'll always do what's in the best interest of Canadians. And we need to defend our country and our economy from the threat of the United States to keep doing that, because these programs are vital for Canadians, to address the cost of living, to give our kids the best start in life, and to give people the best shot at how we need people to have their teeth fixed. We need people to have access to vital medicines. These things will all be protected under the Liberal Party and under a new Mark Carney-led government, because we know they matter. Thank you.
With respect, no comments from the audience during the speakers, please. I'm not shy about moving people out. Thank you. Question number 4, long-term care and healthy aging. People aged 65 plus are the fastest growing demographic in Canada, and it is expected that 1 in 4 Canadians will be 65 or more by the end of the 2030s. This is a 3-part question. Still 2 minutes. You can put this together, I'm sure. What are your party's priorities when it comes to supporting Canada's aging population? How does your party plan to improve working conditions in long-term care facilities and addressing the staffing crisis? And how will your party support Canadians to age at home? And I would ask Caesar to start this round, please. 2 minutes.
It's a running shoes question. The answer to this is similar to the previous ones. Aging at home is and should be the standard. Going to a long-term care when necessary. They require financing, and again, is the issue of that blanket. We have to redistribute wealth. Now, there was a great wealth tax in the books recently in the legislature that didn't see the light of day. Let me give you a fact. Shantanu Deshpande, the CEO of a billionaire of an Indian company, recently in an interview said, the long and the short of it is that in India, the most populous country in the world, 1,430,000,000 people, 2,000 families own 18% of the national wealth. So 1/millionth of the population owns a fifth of the country, but they pay less than 2% of the tax revenue. They own a humongous amount of wealth, but they contribute piddle shit to paying for the roads, the trains, the hospitals, the schools, and he said it's insane. I would agree, and I would add that it's immoral and illegal, because we enjoy a reasonable and respectable life because we abide by a social contract that I mentioned before, which means that we drive on one side of the road, stop at stop signs, pay our taxes, and are urbanly decent to each other. That social contract is based on respect for life. There is no respect when a small minority owns a humongous amount and shares breadcrumbs with the vast majority of the people. That's where we have to attack the problem. And it begins with cooperative politics.
Melanie, follow me next, please. All right. Okay. So yeah, I have experience with this too. My dad is 86. He's currently in a retirement home.
Yeah.
My dad is 86, and he's currently in a retirement home. So I understand very much where this is coming from. And if he didn't have the tiny survivor pension that he got from my mom from her 10 years of teaching before she died, he would be in so much trouble right now. I don't even know. He'd be in so much trouble right now. We as a family wouldn't survive. I can't look after him. Not everyone is cut out for that. Aging at home is nice, but he needs way too much care for that. And so he's in a retirement home. And I'm hearing now that the only way you get into long-term care is if you go into hospital and don't come out. That's great. But that is a provincial thing, not a federal thing. So there's not a lot you can do about that. The only thing the federal government can do is increase the amount of money that is given to seniors so they can pay for things. It's the provinces who decide whether the retirement homes are privatized healthcare for old folks. It's terrible. My dad gets 1 bath a week. He's legally supposed to have 2. And I don't like it. And there's not much you can do as the federal government. All you can do is hand the money to the provinces and see what they do with it. But what they do need is more money. Old folks need more money. They can't afford to live right now. I'm hearing terrible things. Somebody told me about this old lady who'd been living in an apartment, and she'd been living for 10 years, and she got rent evicted. It was cheaper for her to go to an old age home. She must have found a good cheap one. There's not a lot of them around. I was speaking to some very nice old ladies this weekend. They're paying $5,000 a month. $5,000 a month. Who can live on that? There's people who are retiring now. How are they going to find the money for that? And the prices just keep going up and up. So the only thing you can say is you have to provide more money. And maybe we can somehow apply pressure on the provinces.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks. So for my priorities for the aging population, of course, Melanie hit the nail on the head. It is largely a provincial responsibility, but the federal government has some responsibility for that. My party, the Liberal Party, as soon as we took government, we lowered the age of retirement, allowing people to access the retirement funds back to 65, from the Conservatives upped it to 67. We'd keep it there. We increased the old age security by 10%. And then just today, Mark Carney announced a re-elected Liberal government will increase the guaranteed income supplement for seniors to immediately respond to the impact of tariffs and the changing economy. But to improve conditions, the Canada Health Act needs to be enforced. There is a federal piece of legislation that dictates how provinces are to use healthcare funds from the federal government and the consequences for not doing that. We need to enforce that so those consequences exist. We need a strong federal government that will work with First Ministers and work with provinces to make sure that the people who built this country that we love retire with dignity. I'll make sure that happens for you. I'll make sure that that's at the forefront of a Liberal government's decision making. We need to do that. Our seniors deserve better. Stories like what Melanie described are appalling, and they're all too frequent. I'm sure everybody in here has a story of a senior who's in a situation like that. That can't continue. So those direct supports to seniors, as well as the general economic programs and policies of the Liberal Party, are our priority to support seniors as they age. Seniors should have a choice what they do in their retirement, whether they age at home or whether a retirement home is the better option for them. That's up to the person, but we need to support people to make those decisions and make it available for everyone who needs it. Thank you.
And I think we largely have established that this is a provincial issue. However, there is some roles the federal government can take. Obviously, the consistent and reliable transfers in the forms of healthcare transfers and social transfers to the province, so they have reliable, adequate funding to plan and meet the needs of an aging population. Another thing that is critically important is that the federal government, but under a conservative government, would encourage the licensing agencies for doctors and nurse practitioners, et cetera, to open up the residencies, hospitals to open up more residency spaces, encourage universities to have specific funding to open up the number of spaces that are available to doctors who are born and raised in our own province or country. And there's just not enough spaces. And so you have kids that have 97% that can't get into medical school. We need to change that. We need to have more doctors. My doctor recently retired. He had 1,800 patients in Clinton, and the doctor that backfilled him took on 300. That's a huge gap. And so there are a lot of seniors that are left kind of out on a limb. And so we need to continue to have more doctors graduating all the time, and also encourage them to be GPs, general practitioners. They don't all have to be specialists. It's a rewarding career. Even locally, more at home with PSWs and RPNs. Work with local groups like Gateway in Huron County that had the Health Kick program. Work with community colleges to grow in partnership with nursing homes, PSWs and RPNs, which we're critically low of as well. Those are a few things that we can accomplish. You could have a whole debate on this topic, though, but in 2 minutes, that's the snapshot. Thank you.
Question 5, page 2 for the candidates. This question is regarding gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is an epidemic everywhere in Canada. To prevent violence and femicide, shelters and crisis services need more reliable funding and the enforcement of strict gun control. Will your party implement a national action plan on gender-based violence, and if so, what will it contain? How can your party improve policies and community safety when violent offenders are released from custody? And what is your stance on gun control and measures to address gun violence? And we'll begin with Melanie. Just going to be violent and yell.
Okay. This is the opposite of everyday conversations when I'm told not to yell. This is great. Okay. Gender-based violence, also intimate partner violence. It's not just women. It's a lot of people out there with their intimate partners who are doing great damage. So, okay. Yeah, we need a national action plan. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We need a national action plan. The NDP is completely behind that. They're all about that. So, improving policies and community safety. This all comes down to mental health supports. It means supports in the community for people who are experiencing the violence themselves and ways to divert people away from being violent themselves. We need to have community supports for everybody. Oh boy, my brain just blanked. See, I told you I was going to need this binder. Okay, we need community supports. And gun control, yes, absolutely. One of the things we need to do is make sure that guns don't come across the border from the US, because that's where most of the illegal guns come from. Thank you very much. Usually everything comes from them to us, isn't it? So, yeah. When people are poor and scared and afraid and they grow up in violent situations, that violence continues in their lives, either whether they expect it and they don't know how to get away from it, or they've experienced it themselves and they perpetrate it themselves. Mental health is important, and I think we need to have a better mental health national strategy for that. We need to support mental health and fund mental health and provide places for women and others to go when they need to escape. Something better than just a locked door to keep their violent perpetrators away.
Thank you. James?
So this issue is very important for me. As a Crown attorney, as a prosecutor, the large part of my job is prosecuting intimate partner violence offenses. So I'm quite familiar with what exists for these things and the need for it. Absolutely, the Liberal Party and me would support a national plan on gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. Certainly it occurs various genders of persons and partners, but it is over 90% women that are victims of these sort of crimes. So I can't count the number of times I've had a crying victim telling me all the horrible things that have happened to her, and then to have the perpetrator walk out of the courtroom scot-free. So it's something certainly that is at the top of mind for me, and I'll be pushing for. Implementing policies in community safety. So bail is a big concern here. Everybody has a right under the Charter to reasonable bail. Some may tell you that bail is a problem, and the people that tell you that generally don't regard the Charter as anything that would stop them, but it does. Multiple tough on crime policies have been struck down as unconstitutional. However, my party has added a reverse onus in bail for gender-based violence where there's a history. So that means the perpetrator has to demonstrate to the court why they should be released, not the other way around. So that's something concrete we did, as well as recently this year, multiple new sorts of peace bonds and court orders to prevent gender-based violence and have legal consequences to people that abuse their partners. In terms of gun control, of course, I'd support gun control that makes sense. I would commit to a review of the Firearms Act. What sorts of firearms are prohibited and restricted? It has to make sense. It has to be rational. But the paramount goal is to prevent this gender-based violence and the killing of innocent people. And that's certainly something that myself and my party will commit to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Conservative Party actually just released a platform piece on this a couple of days ago, and there will be a new offense in regards to the intimate partner assault. So that is a first step. Stricter penalties, and of course, much stricter bail requirements, the strictest of all, and mandatory GPS bracelets as well. Every 2.5 days, unfortunately in this country, a woman is murdered, and over half of those are by their partner. And so we need to make sure that those mainly men that do this are sentenced, convicted, and have little chance to get out of jail, and not have the murder charge downgraded to manslaughter, which happens many times. So that is what we would do. In regards to gun control, the Liberal government, and no offense to James, but the Liberal government for years has picked the fight with law-abiding gun owners. And I've heard that for years and years and years, and I've seen it firsthand. The real issue is with illegal guns that have crossed the border, guns that have been stolen, and these are guns used by people who would never go get a gun license, who would never register their gun, who would never do anything. The good men and women that I've seen, I've taken the courses myself, that do the training, they're law-abiding, honorable people who want a gun for sport shooting or for hunting. The people we should be focusing on are the criminals who have an intent to hurt people or take people's property. Thank you.
Let me first finish answering the healthy aging question. We shouldn't let many seniors have to choose between paying the rent or the heat or putting food in their bellies. We need to ensure that all seniors, having worked a lifetime, have a reasonably sufficient pension. Again, it comes to redistributing wealth. Now, going to gender-based violence. I worked as a journalist, although in the last 30 years I worked with my hands. I busted my butt in construction in virtually every field, but my training is in sociology and social psychology. I have worked with offenders, I work with victims of violence. And let me remind you that behind every offense, Ben, and certainly there can be punitive measures, what about preventative measures? Behind every criminal act, there is a human being, and very often a distressed and confused human being. So if we keep on putting poor families, poor working families, where the parents have to work 2 or 3 part-time jobs at minimum wage, and not have time to spend with their kids, we will end up with more, and statistics tell us this, more gender-based violence. We will end up with kids that will require hefty public purse expenses in social services and in counseling services and in correctional services. So let's not keep on putting Band-Aids on the problems. Let's go to the root. Let's ensure that every Canadian can eat every day without going to the food bank. Let's make sure that anybody who pulls their weight can lead a decent life and get out of bed with a sense of self-respect and pride.
The next question is back to health care. It's 2-part. How does your party account for federal transfer payments to provinces for health care? Now whose alert's going on? Chuck. No? She's gone to the washroom. She's hiding. We know where you are. It was Jackie. All right, I'll start over. How does your party account for federal transfer payments to provinces for health care to ensure spending is for the public services instead of supplementing private providers? And does your party platform strengthen the Canada Health Act or weaken it? And this time we start with James.
Thank you. So the Liberal government has increased the Canada Health Transfer every year since being in government to meet or exceed the rate of inflation, because a health transfer that doesn't even meet inflation is actually a cut of healthcare money. There's no question about that. This, of course, is a provincial jurisdiction. The federal government funds healthcare, a large part of it, but it is up to the provinces and our constitution to administer. However, the federal government has an important role in making sure that our public healthcare system that we all love stays and is a top quality system. I've mentioned before, the Canada Health Act spells that out, and it needs to be enforced. There isn't an actual policy. I don't think any of our parties have actually released a healthcare policy mentioning the Canada Health Act, but that's certainly something the Liberal Party supports and would enforce to make sure that our system stays the way it should. But again, we have to tackle the elephant in the room, which is the impact of Donald Trump and his tariffs on our economy. If we don't have a strong economy, we can't make these vital investments. And our public healthcare system is certainly in Donald Trump's sights. Speaking about how we would have much better healthcare coverage as part of the 51st state. No, thank you, Donald. No, thank you. We are proud of our system, and we're going to make sure that this country stays strong and free and able to uphold the public healthcare system that we also cherish. It's one of our most fundamental identities as Canadians, is our healthcare system. The Liberal Party has defended it, will continue to defend it, and will continue to build it and grow for all Canadians. Thank you.
Ben?
Thanks very much. And I think if you go right back many years ago, Jim Flaherty and Stephen Harper actually set the bar for setting a plan with all the premiers for transfers to the provinces, and that has kind of set us on the path that we are on today. One thing that we do need to do, and I mentioned it earlier, is we need to increase the number of people that are graduating from our colleges and universities that want to get into the healthcare field. We also need to promote that at the high school level and the elementary level and remind young people of the honorable employment and the honorable jobs that are available in the healthcare field. I think that's vitally important. The other thing is we have to encourage our local health agencies to provide and offer full-time jobs. Too often a young graduate will be given part-time work, and it is discouraging for them, and it leads to, when they're short-staffed and everything else, it leads to burnout. And you hear now of nurses who've worked 10 years and they leave their nursing profession to go work in the private sector that's a 9 to 5 job. We can't have that. And so we need to provide good, stable employment. The other thing we need to do is, and Sean Fraser and Mark Miller and even former Prime Minister Trudeau acknowledged this, in regards to population growth, okay, we swung way too far one way, and our population growth outstripped what we are able to provide healthcare services, school services, etc. And so now it's getting back in line, but we have to grow the number of doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners in our provinces to provide the healthcare that we require. If we don't have that, the fabric of healthcare and the Healthcare Act will be weakened.
Thank you. Caesar?
Well, healthcare is one of the few fields where I think that there is a white and a black. Private healthcare is only helpful for those 57 billionaires who had an increase in their wealth by 29%. Doesn't really serve anybody else's public interest. And I don't like to tailor my views on that 4-time bankrupt amateur businessman dressed up as the president south of the border. But I think that we can very clearly understand that it is not only part of our recent history as a nation, but part of healthy common sense that our Public Health Act is good for the country. It has to stay. It has to stay, and it has to be rooted in community service. It has to be decentralized. You know, we had a trend in Goderich where we centralized a bunch of doctors' offices, which is expedient for them, but it forces many seniors, and you know, they get to the point where I can't drive anymore. There is no public transport. How the hell do you get to the one hub where all the doctors are? So I'm talking to the mayor and say, is anybody thinking of reviving the dead railroad in the area? Well, yes, apparently there is a task force that started out of the blue 6 months ago and is working on it. Well, let's get them off their haunches or off their backside, because we need this stuff yesterday. And I got no patience for this kind of stuff. I've seen too many incompetent or lazy individuals who hold on to their jobs and don't deliver. I hope not to be elected, in all honesty. I'm going to retire this spring. I don't want to go up Confusion Hill and have to argue with another 342 guys. But if we have to do it, we do it.
How do I follow that act? I love you, Caesar. You're great. Okay.
Pretty smile, Melanie. Don't worry.
Okay. So, quick talk. So, healthcare. Yeah, strengthen it. Good idea. Let's do that. Because we haven't really been doing that for the last 20 years, have we? So, let's go back in time. Sorry, this is going to be a little dig at both of you. I apologize. Sorry, this is going to be a little dig at both of these guys. I'm apologizing now, but, you know, hey, truth hurts. The Conservatives cut $43.5 billion last time they were in charge. The Liberals didn't really enforce what the provinces were supposed to be spending their money on. Ford has kept back billions of dollars that should have been put into the healthcare system. This is why our ERs are closing. This is why our healthcare workers don't want to work anymore, because they are burnt out. I have a friend, she's a nurse, she works in a long-term care facility with people with dementia. She has so many bruises all over her body. She is in so much pain all the time because of them, because the working conditions are so awful. Again, this is provincial, not federal, but the federal government should be enforcing things. Come on, they're the federal government. Why aren't they doing something about this? They have the means. All right, so another thing we can do is we can stop barriers for doctors so they can move around the country. Right now, a doctor is certified in Ontario, can only stay in Ontario. Has to recertify if he wants to move or she wants to move. I had a friend who went out to BC. She had to recertify. She's a smart cookie, though. She did it. We also need to strengthen the Canada Health Act to stop privatization. That's another thing we really need to do because privatization is going to suck everything dry. If we don't stop privatization, nothing else really matters. So we need to strengthen the Canada Health Act. That's it.
This next question is in regard to food insecurity. More than 4 million Canadians are food insecure. Food banks are overrun with demand, and food emergencies have been declared in many communities. This is a two-part question. If elected, what would you do to ensure all Canadians can access sufficient, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food? And given the link between poverty and food insecurity, what is your party's perspective and approach to poverty reduction, including tax reform and a guaranteed annual income? And we'll start this round with Ben, please.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, and a very important question. First of all, we need more housing. We need more housing at all levels, and we don't need it in 10 years. We need it now. I've talked to 2 different real estate developers or builders in the past 2 weeks complaining about the red tape and the frustration they're getting for trying to build housing. And so we need to cut some of the useless red tape so that builders can build and people can get into homes. We also have to have a stable funding strategy that's linked between the federal government, provincial government, and county governments to put in affordable housing. It doesn't work right now. It's broken, and I would say it starts at the federal government. They could take leadership with it. And if the counties and the local municipalities know they're going to get so many dollars over so many years, they can put them in and they can plan. Right now, it's a piecemeal system that almost works like a lottery. So you have to deal with the housing, you have to deal with the housing affordability, you have to deal with the cost of food. The cost of food, the number one thing you could do right now is cut the carbon tax on farmers and cut the industrial carbon tax that impacts the processors. We could use another pork processing plant in this province. We could use another beef processing plant in this province and make sure that what we grow here is processed here and that the people in our province and our country can eat the food. It is ridiculous to have a country with so much and have people that sometimes, in some cases all the time, are food insecure. These are some of the common sense approaches that we can take to help deal with the issue. Thank you.
Complex issue on which it's easy to yap a lot, but I don't like yapping, I like facts. So a little fact. Every day we produce worldwide enough food to feed 9 billion people, but we cannot feed 8 billion. Every 3 or 4 seconds of every minute, of every hour, of every day, of every week, of every month, one human being like you and you and you starves to death. As one of the brothers and sisters that the original Don Quixote, the visionary who got nailed to the cross, the one who said, love your God with all your mind, heart, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, he was talking about them. And we sit on our relatively comfortable bums while every 3 or 4 seconds, somebody starves to death. Is somebody's son, brother, sister, mother? What can we do about it? Well, I can think of about 500 things that we can do, but it begins by changing the nature of politics, by forcing our parties to be at the service of the nation, not of winning the next election. Adversarial politics is the driving the bus of society with the handbrakes pulled. We gotta release those brakes because we'll cause a fire in our society, exactly the way it's happening in the States. So, food insecurity, I'll tell you one thing. In 1990, Brian Mulroney came to the TV station where I was anchoring the news, and in informal talks with Mr. Pella, with the policies of our government by year 2000, child poverty will be history in Canada. Oh, that's nice. Now, he was booted out in 93, but Jean Chrétien sang from the same songbook. But in 2000, child poverty was up 30%. I have enough of the bullshit. There is enough wealth to end it now.
Melanie? Okay. All right. Yeah, food insecurity. Well, what you mean is poverty, right? Obviously. It's not just food insecurity, it's insecurity in everything. If you can't afford food, you can't afford rent, you can't afford bills, you can't afford even public transit to get to the job you need, right? Food insecurity. Well, the NDP knows that there's not a lot you can do about some things, but there's a lot you can do about some things. Like you can cap the prices of the most important groceries you can buy in the grocery store. Remember a couple of years ago when Loblaws got caught colluding on the price of bread? Remember that? They got caught on the bread. I wonder what else they weren't caught on. Like everything. Like everything. So yeah, one thing you can do is make sure that the big groceries aren't allowed to do that anymore. Just tell them no. You're the government. Just tell them no. Say there is a legal limit that they can only charge for certain things that people need to live. You can't overcharge for things that people need to live. That's, well, isn't that called profiteering? That used to be illegal. Somehow we've forgotten that in the last 50 years. So why don't we make it illegal for big retail or residential income trusts to buy up all the affordable housing? They did. They're buying up all the affordable housing. Yeah. So that means that they can charge whatever they want for rent because they own everything. Let's make it illegal for them to do that too. Simple as.
So we started with a discussion on housing in this, and certainly housing is vitally important, and I've discussed our housing platform. But when you go in that house and the cupboards are bare, it doesn't really make much of a difference. So food insecurity is a significant issue, something that I've experienced myself at various points, so it's very important to me. The Liberal government has pulled 665,000 children out of poverty with the Canada Child Benefit and brought in the Canada Food Program to bring in food to children in schools, healthy, locally sourced food for children. Unfortunately, that wasn't a unanimous vote in Parliament, but it did ultimately pass. So ensuring those programs continue is vital to make sure healthy, culturally appropriate food gets to the people who need it. It is inexcusable, and I agree with my colleagues, that in a G7 country with the wealth that Canada has, that people go hungry. It is inexcusable, and we need to stop it. And our plan is to stop it. We'll have our economy booming. We'll create the strongest economy in the G7. And part of that, we're supporting agriculture and agri-food sector to make sure that the people who feed us stay in business. We remove the carbon tax. We have a plan to cut individual income tax. Programs like the Canada Child Benefit, old age security increases, guaranteed income supplement increases, those will all still continue to pull people out of poverty. A lot of great work has happened, but a lot still needs to happen. And we commit to you that that work will still happen. Thank you.
This question is regard to post-secondary education. How do you plan to enhance the quality of education and ensure that all Canadians have access to affordable post-secondary education? And what plans or policies does your party have to permit foreign students to attend colleges and universities in Ontario and all provinces? And we'll start with Caesar, please.
There is one dangerous trend in education: the shift towards a tech-based curriculum, whether it's information or practical high-end skills, which are important and not sufficient. That's a mindset that creates the Elon Musks of this world. Genius, an amoral, if not immoral genius. A guy who can tell Europe that the only hope for Germany is in the far right because he knows nothing of what Adolf Hitler meant for that country and for the world. Ignorance is a bliss. It allows an individual who is uncultured and deranged like Donald Trump to blather away and open his mouth, spouting all sorts of idiocies, thinking that it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's not okay, because there is culture. Culture that comes from generations of attempts to improve our lot and improve our life. And that culture deserves respect. And that respect has to be taught in schools, not just techie things. There are two sides to it, and we are forgetting the importance of arts and philosophy and logic. We got to bring a focus back on that and rebalance the trend. As for the, it's again the problem of funding. We need to find the money to subsidize or integrate students' costs in university, but also to adequately fund our primary education system. And again, I refer you to my little brochure. Thank you.
So post-secondary education regulation, of course, is a provincial responsibility as well. But again, the federal government has a huge role to play in that. 2/3 of every student loan dollar that go to a student in Ontario come from the federal government. The Liberal Party removed interest on the federal portion of Canada's student loans. Most provinces followed suit, and doubled the Canada Student Grant to make sure that more grant money goes to students so they can afford post-secondary education. The costs of it have skyrocketed over the years. Provinces aren't adequately funding post-secondary institutions, so they have to get the money from somewhere. The burden of that fell to international students who aren't regulated what they can charge in Ontario. We need a balance because we need immigration to meet the essential skills gap that we have in Canada, and we are fundamentally a country of immigrants. We pride ourselves on immigration. That does need to be balanced. We need to make sure immigrant levels can be handled by social services, by housing, food security, and by our economy. Things got out of balance. So last year, the federal government corrected that and put a cap on how many international students can come to Canada. Hopefully, we're in a place in the future where we can increase that cap again, but we have to maintain that gap until our country can sustain that properly. So the quality of post-secondary education, though, we need to get out of this traditional mindset where that only means college and university. This community especially knows that includes the skilled trades. We need skilled tradespeople throughout our economy. Mark Carney announced that a federal Liberal government will cover apprenticeship costs for apprentices in the skilled trades. That's something I'm very proud of, coming from this community and from this country, that we really need to have this country respond to the threat from the United States and any other changes to our economy as we go forward. We will use those skills, we'll use those programs to build Canada strong in the future.
Well, you can tell who the professional orators are here. It's not me. All right. So, post-secondary education. Yeah, as you say, it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone wants to go on to post-secondary education, and they should have a chance to do what they need to find the work that means the most to them, and that's great. But the problem is that there has been, as mentioned, you stole my fire. Yeah. There was a lot of cuts to funding, and they did need to bring in a lot of foreign students to make up that funding. And the class sizes have increased exponentially, and that means that students don't get to see their professor very much. Yeah, it's not good. So we definitely should be increasing funding. We should also be making accountability. Again, I know a guy, friend of mine, family friend. He was a professor for a while. He never quite made it to tenure, and he actually had to go off and work for Home Hardware eventually. But the reason why he eventually left was because he kept getting told that he wasn't allowed to fail students in university. Okay. So that really didn't sit well with him. And I think that we need to kind of look at that and look at what quality of teaching we're doing, what the deans are saying, what happens when a student cheats. Another friend, I know another guy, he's still teaching at Conestoga College, and he is complaining all the time, about all the cheating that he has to deal with. It's insane. It's insane. He doesn't have the time to catch up to these kids, and they don't get kicked out. They don't get kicked out for cheating. So why don't we get some accountability? Maybe we should give them funding and sort of tie it to accountability. Let's try that. See if we can increase the quality of people who actually graduate from post-secondary.
First and foremost, I think at the post-secondary level, less on administrative bloat and more focus on the professors and teachers. I think for many, many years, it's been the other way around, and it's out of kilter. So that would be the very first thing. The second thing is it must start at a young age, and it has to do with the elementary schools and the community colleges and the universities, but what is actually required in our economy. Today, I read just recently that for every 5 skilled tradespeople retiring, there are only 2 backfilling those positions. We need to continue to encourage at the elementary school and the high school level the honor of skilled trades, the honor of hard work, and the honor of giving back into your community through those trades. Not everybody has to go to university. When I was going through high school, it was almost if you were a failure if you didn't get into university. That wasn't me. That was kind of away from the teachers, I think, at that time. And I think there's been a gradual change, but we have to provide a glimpse of what is actually out there and available. In regards to foreign students and foreign students at colleges and universities, I think it's pretty obvious, both in the news and the facts, that universities and colleges really abuse the system to pad their bottom line, which also led to terrible experiences for our foreign and international students. When they come here, they come from far away. They come here for the Canadian dream. And when they come here and they don't have a place to stay, they're not familiar with what they're supposed to do, it is not a good experience. And so, like James said, there has to be a cap. There is a cap. There needs to be reform because it has to add to the student's experience, and it has to provide them with a good experience in this country. Thank you.
Question 9 is in regard to climate change and the environment. Climate change is a national issue that requires nationwide action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, protect our natural resources and ecosystems, and mitigate the impacts that climate change has had on our communities. The 2-part question: what are the key components of your party's platform that will address climate change and protect our natural environment? And how will your party address the needs of communities adversely affected by environmental degradation, climate change, including the Indigenous communities? And we'll start this round with James, please.
So climate change and the environment are one of the existential threats, not just to our country, but to our very existence as a species on this planet. We need to protect it. Especially here in Canada, we're blessed with the world's largest freshwater supply, our immense forests, our beautiful scenery. We need to protect that here in Canada. So climate change is something that will always be on the forefront of a Liberal government. Today, the Liberal Party announced that an increase of protecting Canada's ecosystems, protecting Canada's environment, and regulation to do that. That includes investment in green technologies like carbon capture and clean fuel sources. Here in Kincardine, we're an expert in clean fuel sources. We have the world's largest nuclear power plant that creates those green jobs and that safe, secure addition to Ontario's grid with electricity. In terms of the involvement of various communities, such as Indigenous communities, part of the Liberal plan is to legislate First Nations communities' right to their access to water. Canada, under a Liberal government, was one of the countries that ratified the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And throughout various points of Canadian law, we've ratified that. This is one area where we will ratify that. Have First Nations, Indigenous peoples' right to access to their water. But it goes for all Canadians, not just Indigenous Canadians. We all have a stake in this beautiful country, and we're going to protect that beautiful country. But as I mentioned, our changing relationship with the United States is vitally important. Our border only exists because of a treaty with the United States. The regulation of that giant, beautiful Great Lake there only exists because of a treaty with the United States. And the United States has shown it's willing to rip up and not regard treaties. We have to fight against that. We will fight against that and keep Canada strong and beautiful for all of us. The True North Strong and Free will continue.
Melanie?
Okay. So I'm sad to say that Canada actually has the worst record of any of the G7 countries for being environmentally conscious, unfortunately. And that does have to do with a lot of, well, some of our resources. That doesn't help. So the problem is, what do you do when you've got resources that are damaging, but are still necessary for the economy, right? Well, in Norway, they tax the oil and gas companies and use that money to fix other parts of the economy or to invest in green initiatives. We could use that money to build more, wind farms and solar farms and increase nuclear power as well, because we're going to need something. We need something. It's going to be really bad in the years coming ahead, and we know that. We're looking forward. We need to invest in climate adaptation. We need to look at what we can do for the future. And the NDP wants to invest in that as well, try to make communities more resilient towards the coming change. We need to look at that as well. We need to make the people who are doing the polluting pay for it. So maybe they'll be interested in polluting less. That's pretty much the NDP plan.
Caesar?
Complex issue with a double focus, I think. We have to operate at the grassroots, and we have thousands of initiatives at the level. At the systemic level, in terms of laws, we have to keep empowering and strengthening the legislation to defend natural resources and our environment. We also have to be smart in preventing or limiting the takeover of our national resources as well as core industries by foreign powers. One recent example is a Thai billionaire who has, through a backdoor, a legal gimmick, through the sun, bought a slew of pulp and paper facilities and operations in Canada. He's now one of the biggest players in that industry in our nation. This man has a pretty horrid record as a palm oil slumlord back in Thailand. And I don't know why we should think that he's going to be any more discreet and conscientious in his business operations here. We cannot allow this to happen, and it shouldn't have happened that time either. Somebody was asleep at the switch, evidently, in our government. In terms of the grassroots, it's a slow progress, and it requires, again, the switch in perspective that is a lot easier at the grassroots. Cooperation rather than adversarialism, integrity and in good faith negotiations. In my experience, at the top, it's a tough goal. So grassroots work is important to change the laws at the top.
Well, I think the biggest, it's not really a technological innovation for the environment, but certainly it is technology. And that's one of the ways it's going to drive us to meet our goals and objectives. And if you go back 20 years ago, smog days were in the news almost on a daily basis in the summertime. The transition away from coal-fired power plants to nuclear power plants basically eliminated the smog days in Ontario and allowed Ontario to meet its Paris Climate Accord numbers and many other numbers. So what I'm saying is technology can help us lead the way. There's also the ability with LNG and with pipelines to help out the rest of the world. They're going to use combustion to develop their electricity, and it will be far better for them to get liquefied natural gas than to burn coal and let it blow up into the atmosphere. Those are some things that we can do. Those are some things where Canadians can help, but we've got to get some of these resource projects approved and reduce the amount of time it takes to get pipelines built. Another one is with preservation. There are a number of watersheds, obviously, within Huron-Bruce County, and there's a great number of things that the federal government can partner with the provincial government and local governments to help them do more in our communities with wetlands, with reforestation, with slowing the water down before it gets into our rivers, creeks, and streams. We've had some great successes, and we need to continue to be committed to that. And the one I always like to throw in is the fuel efficiency of the automobile. My first vehicle was a 1978 Ford pickup truck, and it got 7 or 8 miles to the gallon. Now a pickup truck gets 30 miles to the gallon. I know most people don't use that anymore, but thank you. Okay. Automobile talk later.
In the interest of time, because we want to leave here sharp, 9 o'clock, and I have to read Gregory McLean's statement. Then we will follow that with a 3-minute statement from each candidate, Linda's choice in the order. And we also want to hopefully have enough time to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Thank you. So at this time, I'll read the statement that Gregory McLean, the candidate for the Green Party, submitted. It was addressed by email to our president, and I'm going to read the statement now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gregory McLean, and I am the candidate for the Green Party of Canada in the upcoming federal election. My apologies for not being with you in person tonight. When I took on this role, of candidacy, I made a promise to everyone to honor the commitments that preceded this election, and I stand by my promises. I am a 30-year resident of Bruce County after emigrating here from Georgetown to accept what I thought would be a temporary job. Not only did I get full-time work, but I got myself a wife and a Bruce County born and bred family. Jane and I have 3 adult children, and I'm very proud of them, especially my son Dash, who lives with the gift of having Down syndrome. My faith and my family have had a profound impact on the person that I have become today. I currently live in Walkerton, and I'm sitting municipal councillor in Brockton. I spent 30 years as both a teacher and a school administrator in the Bruce Grey and Huron-Perth Catholic systems. I am heavily involved in my community, an Optimist Club member, volunteer at our food bank for Special Olympics and the lovely Jubilee Hall. I led the fight for reopening of our hospital's emergency department. I sit as an executive member on the board of directors of the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and I'm also a champion for accessibility in my community. A few thoughts on the Green Party and why you should choose me as your MP. I compost. I use the EcoSys setting on my clothes dryer when they aren't hanging on a line in my backyard. I may not hug trees, but I darn well plant them. I drive 81 kilometers per hour on the highway. Oh. I mulch grass, clippings, and leaves. I walk and bike as much as I can get me to where I need to go. I celebrate Earth Day and pick up garbage, but there is so much more to being green. I want to protect Canadian sovereignty and diversify our economy. I want improved health care. I believe all Canadians have a right to a place to call home. I believe we need to support local businesses and agriculture. I believe that the stewardship of the environment is critical. But it's not just the environment at stake. It's the future of our children, the well-being of our communities, and the health of our economy and people. In this way, aren't we all some shade of green? I clearly demonstrate a service-oriented philosophy in both my professional and personal life. What I have done for my immediate community, I offer to the constituents of Huron-Bruce. That was good, eh? Right. Okay. Anyway. So the statement's been read. Are you ready? Do you need more water? All right, here we go. 3 minutes each. Be polite. Who begin? James, please.
So good evening, everyone, again. Again, thank you to you all for coming and listening to talk about these important issues, and to my fellow candidates. This election is the most consequential in all of our lifetimes. I know politicians have told you that in every election that you remember. This time it's true. Our country is at stake, and there's nothing more worth fighting for. I'm James Rice, proud part of Mark Carney's Liberal team, running to be your member of Parliament here in Huron-Bruce, to make sure our perspectives, our communities, our needs are not lost from those in Ottawa. Again, we're at war. Donald Trump is coming for us. He has come for us. He attacked us. But he underestimated Canada. He thought we were a place that he didn't need anything from us, that would just roll over and accept statehood. Boy, was he wrong. Canada fought back, and we fought back hard. And Donald Trump noticed. Mark Carney became our Prime Minister, and Donald Trump noticed. Canada demanded respect, and we got it. And we're going to fight to keep it. We need someone at the helm as we go forward that's going to continue building us all up and building Canada strong, instead of reminding us how broken we are. Build us up instead of leaving us broken and ready to be conquered. We're going to fight for this beautiful country that was stitched together by a railroad in 1867. A country that has fought for freedom and democracy around the world. A country that is at the forefront of innovation with insulin, various medicines, technologies. A country that brings together people from all around the world to love and grow in this place we all call home. A country where we look out for each other and make sure we all have a chance at success. They say it takes a community, a village to raise a child. That's literally true in my case. This community is the village that raised me. This community and this country have given me everything, and I'm looking forward for the chance to fight to give my everything back to you. Thank you. At this critical moment, Canada needs a champion. Canada gets that with Mark Carney. We will build Canada strong. I, as your member of parliament, will build Huron-Bruce strong. There's nothing more worth that fight. I'm looking forward to getting into that fight, and I hope you will all join me in that fight to keep us, the true North, strong and free. On April 28th, or before that if you so choose, and I hope you do, vote James Rice, part of Mark Carney's Liberal team, to be your member of parliament. Thank you.
Very rousing. Again, hard act to follow. Why vote for me? Well, I've spent the last 20 years signing out books for kids. That's what I did. And I saw that as kind of my greatest calling in life. Because a long time ago, I read an interesting study that said every book that every child takes out, no matter rich, poor, whatever, every book that they read will increase their chances of a better outcome in life. So with every book that I signed out for the last 20 years, I sent it off with a silent wish for that child. I wish them better. I wish them to have a better life. And I want to take that sort of energy and bring it to Huron-Bruce. I want everyone here to have a better life. I want to take that energy and let you know that you matter. You're not just some little person stuck off in a corner somewhere who doesn't deserve to be heard. You deserve to be heard. And you deserve to have a better life. And better is possible. People have stopped voting because they see no change. Doesn't matter who you vote for, right? Nothing happens. Vote Conservative, vote Liberal. Your life still gets worse. You know what they say about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Try a different result. Try voting for me. Let's see what happens.
Under this shirt, I have a t-shirt. There is "Stay humble and kind." It's not a moralistic thing. It's a political statement. It comes from 3 days that I spent 3 years ago in a Hail Mary air ambulance, 1 in a million chance of survival, last minute heart surgery that led the staff at University Hospital in London who looked after me to call me Miracle Man. A surgery that could have lasted 2 hours lasted 10.5 hours. Surgeon said that I put him through hell. And he put me in a 3-day medically induced coma. I was dead to this world, 0 sensory input, and I was 110% aware of who I was, of my life, that my body was under surgery, I could survive or die, and I existed in what I could best describe to you as a dimensionless reality. They had no color, no sound, no temperature, nothing except a presence. Now, I've always been interested particularly because at the beginning of the university, I was for 3 years studying medicine, and I got interested in mental health and related things. I got interested in NDEs, near-death experiences. And they have recurrent themes. I saw nothing of that. On the other hand, I wasn't dead. I was at death's door. But that presence that I could describe as a very quiet and intense presence led me through a revision of my entire life and of life in general. And at the end, it gave me a silent message. You go back there. The problem with you humans is that you have put the cart of practicalities in front of the donkey of the sacred values of the mystery of existence. I was at the birth of each one of my 4 daughters. And when the baby comes out of their womb, I don't know you, but me, it hit me like a 2x4 in the soul. This is miraculous. This is sacred. How fast do we forget? How fast do we accept to see human beings treated like disposable corporate assets when not cannon fodder? So stay humble and kind is the spirit with which we need to turn that Titanic of ours from the route towards a Mariana Trench of socio-political disaster towards which it's headed. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the organizers again for putting on the debate tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time. And I want to thank Caesar for not hitting me in the head with his left arm swinging around. I really appreciate that, Caesar. There's a couple close calls, but I was sitting like this. So, no, I know. Folks, we really need a sound plan for now, but we also need a sound plan for our future, for our kids and our grandkids. And there's really 3 things that I see that we need to do as a federal government to succeed now and in the future. It's 1, increase economic activity to bring home powerful paychecks. 2, do things that will decrease the costs of all Canadians and Canadian families. Those are 2 of the most important. And number 3, build a resiliency in our economy that allows us to be more independent, diversified, and sovereign. Those are really the 3 things that I see we could do to really help this country. A couple examples of what we're offering. Number 1, for unlocking our economy and our powerful paychecks. By eliminating the GST on new homes, it will spur economic growth in home building. There is no doubt that it will give a shot in the arm to home builders, provide jobs to contractors, building setters, etc. Reducing costs, selling 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres in federal land to be allowed to build for housing. This is going to be a tremendous benefit. And unlocking billions of dollars in investment with the capital gains change that we're talking about for reinvesting back into the Canadian economy. That's going to be a tremendous benefit for employers, investors, and the general worker from one coast to the other. When we talk about building resiliency in our economy and independence in our economy, it's not right that we can have the 3rd largest supply of oil in this country, but not have people in the East Coast using Canadian oil. We need to fix that. We have to, like I've said also, LNG. We have to make sure that we can get our oil to the coast, and we also have to make sure that we can get our LNG to the coast. It's to the benefit of the rest of the world, and it also provides great paychecks to Canadian men and women. Axing the carbon tax, axing the industrial component of the carbon tax, axing the carbon tax on agriculture. Those are still on there.
questions from the audience. If you want to ask a question, you must come to the mic.
Yeah,
Identify yourself.
mine's not a question, it's a statement.
Just one moment, please. Thank you. Questions or statements must be addressed by identifying yourself.
Yeah,
And also, if you have a question, please direct it to all candidates or to a particular candidate.
sure.
And how long do they have to ask a question or statement?
You're going to have 45 seconds to
45
ask a
seconds?
question. I don't want 17 minutes.
No, it's not going to be 15 minutes, I just want 2 minutes like these people have.
Sorry. We're running out of time.
Well, that's not my issue.
Yeah, well, we all agreed to being out of here at 9 o'clock. So if your question is asked, we'll leave it
No,
at
I'm not going to go
Thank
forward.
you. We have a
because,
lineup. Please, we'll get to as many as we can. Be mindful of the time. Sir.
Hi, Paul Thompson. Something that hasn't been touched on tonight, but which has been topical, is MAID. I would like each of you to tell me whether you would extend MAID, whether, as the UN has suggested, roll it back, maybe take the example from Quebec, make some changes in it.
Is your question directed to an individual?
No, it's for all of them.
Okay, thank you. Caesar?
The question is about me?
MAID, medically assisted death.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Not an easy one. Respect for life is core. I was raised Catholic. I have, I think, retained the spirit of it, outgrowing the ideology of it. Having been in medical circles as a student for 3 years, I have come very close to death and to the phases that lead to it. There are valid experiences that can be had in the throes of near death. It's really a case-by-case situation. I support MAID as an option. It's like abortion. I don't encourage it, but I would want to see it available.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question, topical question. I always support life as best we can from beginning to end. But I think if you look at palliative care and hospice, it has come a long ways in 20 years. When I first started knocking on doors, there really wasn't a hospice in Huron or Bruce County that I can think of. And now that we have several to make end of life more comfortable for families and for the person who is with the terminal illness. There are many, many issues that have been brought forward in the last couple of years in regards to perhaps what you'd call the slippery slope. And I know was a huge study in Parliament in Ottawa about that. Experts, medical experts. It's a discussion you could have a whole debate on, and we're running out of time. But we can talk afterwards if you'd like to talk more about it.
Okay, we're not standing anymore. All right. I have to admit, I haven't looked up the NDP policy on that, so I would be speaking for myself, not the party, as long as we understand that. Again, like Caesar said, I think it should be available, but not pushed. I think that we shouldn't have a society where people feel that they have to escape the reality that they're living in. I know that there are some disabled people who are very concerned that they're not going to be able to exist in this world with all all the struggles that they have to go through. And done.
Thank you. So in principle, I would support an expansion of MAID as it is thoroughly studied and with appropriate parameters. Of course, medical assistance in dying as it currently exists is limited to terminal illness situations, requires medical practitioners to be involved. So it's not a 100% yes or 100% no. It's something that I'd want to thoroughly study and ensure works and is legally permissible. But it's something I would definitely be open to exploring further.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Prenger, and my question is to the parties. So, Caesar, you're out of luck here. You can't talk on this one. Can you give me 2 points for each of your leaders why they should be Prime Minister?
Is it addressed to each candidate?
Each candidate, yes. Except Caesar.
Okay, Ben?
With Pierre Poilievre, I've known Pierre a very long time. He is one of the most intelligent people and hardworking people I've ever met in my entire life. I think he would make Canada proud as their Prime Minister, but certainly highly intelligent and highly hardworking. He is an expert. He becomes an expert through his dedication on every single file, and he makes a decision based on the facts and the evidence for which he is gleaned from subject matter experts. That's who I want in a Prime Minister. I want somebody who is competent in those regards. Thank you.
So Jagmeet Singh has brought himself up from basically ground zero. He worked 3 jobs, 3 minimum wage jobs to get himself through university. He managed to become a lawyer. He worked there for a while. And at the same time, he was bringing up he was looking after his teenage brother. He knows what it's like to be out there struggling. He knows what it's like to fight. He knows what it's like to win. And he very much cares about everybody. He really does.
So in Mark Carney, the reason why I believe Mark Carney should be your Prime Minister is, first of all, he has the knowledge and experience and the expertise to build Canada strong. As the Governor of Canada, the Bank of Canada, the Governor of the Bank of England, he has done a phenomenal job in weathering economic crises, both here and there, and he's been renowned all over the world, including by Liberal, Conservative, and other political stripe prime ministers and ministers of finance in both countries. That expertise has already shown itself. He's hit the ground running in the 9 days he's been Prime Minister, and he is the best positioned because of that knowledge and expertise and that work experience to be our Prime Minister going forward. He'll build Canada strong.
Hi, my name is Lois Melanson, and my question is for Ben Lobb. During Pierre Poilievre's campaign, media is restricted to 4 questions per event, and the questions voiced must be approved by campaign staff. For 3 CCP leaders, no media is allowed to travel with Pierre Poilievre, while the other parties do have media on board. Further, Pierre Poilievre has repeatedly stated that he will defund or drastically reduce funding for the CBC. Please explain the rationale for keeping media and the public in the dark.
Thanks very much. I think the differences between what the other leaders are doing as far as the questions go and what Pierre is doing, there's very few differences. It's a set number of questions, and they pick who asks the questions, and it's the same for Mark Carney, and it's likely the same for Jagmeet Singh. And the second part of your question was on the CBC. Okay. How much time do I have left? 20 seconds. Oh, boy. Well, obviously, I just leave it at this. Times have changed on how people get their information, their news, and their television. And the CBC costs Canadian taxpayers over $1 billion a year. I think those dollars would be much better used elsewhere. However, I think there's a tremendous value for CBC radio, both in English and French languages. Times have changed on how people get their information.
Thank you. My name is Odette Bartnicki. My question is going to ask for a yes or no answer from each candidate. White supremacists and neo-Nazis promote the belief that white people are superior to others and that society should uphold white dominance. Racism, ageism, this should concern everybody, ageism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, ableism, homophobia, and transphobia are just some of the behaviors that people who maintain Nazi and white supremacist belief. As a population, our population diversifies in Huron-Bruce. We're concerned about the growth of white supremacists and neo-Nazism. I would like each candidate to answer the following question, yes or no. Do you denounce neo-Nazism and white supremacy?
Thank you. Yes or no answers, please, James.
Unequivocally, yes.
Melanie?
Unequivocally, yes.
Ben?
Yes.
And Caesar?
You got to be kidding. Yes.
I'm not kidding, it's taken,
Talk to these confused
it has taken 8 months to get that.
Yeah, may I quickly interject? Because I know it sounds like a bit of an absurd question, but my name is Patrick Corvin. I'm a registered nurse and the founder of No Hate in Huron. It took us 8 months of uninterrupted advocacy to get that answer out of Ben Lobb. Shame on him.
My name is Grant Robertson. Unfortunately, a lot of the questions tonight were about on provincial levels. I'd like to know both parties, Liberal and Conservative, you're offering tax cuts. We're at a time where we need money. Why are you giving money to everybody? Why is the tax cut for everybody? I'm sure there's a third of us in this room who don't need it, and the other 2/3 really need it.
Is your question for each candidate?
That's the question for Ben and James.
Thank you. Ben?
Well, thanks very much. Generally speaking, tax cuts are going to help provide to have more money in everybody's pockets. That should help them have more money to use how they see fit, which is mainly to pay your bills. And so what we're trying to say, don't forget, that's giving back you your money. And so $1 is better spent. $1 is better spent in your pocket than in the hands of the government, because we know how much it costs for a government to have $1 in their hands. So that's a basic principle. I think in general, all Canadians are overtaxed. And like I said earlier, over 50% of your household expenses go into tax. That's ridiculous. It doesn't matter how much you have or whatever. That's way too much tax.
James?
Thank you for the question. So the middle class tax cut for our proposal is designed for the middle class, the working class that most people in Canada will fit into. Those are the persons who need the tax relief. The carbon tax cut will apply to everyone, but that also applies to the ones who need it the most, as to bring their costs down. An important part, it's a limited tax decrease, and the taxation funds the important programs that go to the people who need it the most, like the Canada Food Program, dental care, pharmacare, child care. So that's the purpose behind our tax relief measure.
Thank you. We have 2 questions remaining. People with the mic down, that'll be the last 2 questions from the audience. The candidates will be staying around for a few minutes once we are well past our cutoff time, so continue.
My name is Barbie Bonhausen. I live in Kincardine. My question is for Ben and for James. I believe that Caesar has answered this question already. How would each party fund the tax cuts that they have promised while reducing our deficit?
James?
So the tax cuts promised, again, are the middle class tax cut and the carbon tax rebate. So the carbon tax decrease, so removing the carbon tax self-funds in a way as the carbon tax rebate also expires as a result. So that was revenue neutral in itself, so that part takes care of itself. In terms of the rest, the growth in Canada's economy that we're going to see, the investment in Canadian forces, the investment in Canadian pipelines, in jobs across the country, that is going to increase the tax revenue for government to be able to decrease taxes on the middle class as well as making important investments in Canada.
One of the obvious things is that in the last 10 years, the size of government has almost doubled. It has almost doubled in the amount of money that is being spent, but I don't think most Canadians see their life twice as good as it was 10 years ago. So obviously there's opportunities to look at government expenditures. I had the honor to sit on the Science and Technology Committee, and I was blown away at some of the wasteful spending that takes place right underneath our noses. So there's you'd be surprised. And so if we took some of the spending and gave it back to Canadians, that only makes sense. It's their money. The size of the public service has grown at an exponential rate. This is at a time where people and businesses are using science and using technology to speed up the process, to speed up the services that government provides.
Thank you.
My name is Chuck Basti. I'm not a liberal or a conservative, but I have one thing I wanted to ask James and Ben. Obviously, Ben, you're the incumbent here. It's been a blue historically riding for a really, really long time. And I voted for Trudeau 3 different times, and I despise the man. I'm tired of the right and left conversation where it's a lesser of two evils. And I feel I'm always, as a citizen, looking to see who is the worst candidate versus who is the candidate who's most qualified to look at the best interests of Canadians. Now that Trudeau has left, how do you historically unseat the incumbent as a liberal and ride on Pierre Poilievre to the right-hand side, not coming more towards the center? As a liberal and as a conservative, how do you find that you can take the vote from a liberal inside of Pierre Poilievre as a riding for a federal?
Thank you. Okay, James.
So that's up to you. Who your representative is up to you. We have a strong candidate for Prime Minister in Mark Carney. The Liberal Party is not the same party that it was before Mark Carney took over. In terms of here, the Liberal Party is a big tent. I'm a proud centrist. There's room for you. There's room for Liberals, Conservatives, New Democrats, Greens, however you identify politically. There's room for you in the Liberal Party. We're all on Team Canada now. We need to fight the important fight, and Mark Carney's the man to lead that charge. And I hope that you choose me to be your captain and Huron-Bruce to lead that charge for us here.
Thanks for the question. I think your question was around how do you grow your base for the federal party, basically. And that's Pierre's objective. Obviously, that is his objective. It's to put policies, to put hope into people so that they can see themselves in a better place in their life in 4 years. And like I say, that's unlocking the economy. In the last 10 years, it's been handcuffed. We want to unlock that economy. We want to give people hope. We want to give people hope that they can invest, that their kids can grow up in the community, they can go to school and have their own career when they do it. And not only that, be able to afford a home, be able to afford a home. So those are a couple things to try and appeal to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you all for your patience. All the questions have been asked. We're way over time. It's at 9:15. Before you all jump up, I would like to thank all of you for coming out. I would like to thank the candidates for being prepared and asking all these questions. I'd like to thank Terry Marsh for jumping in at the last moment and providing the sound equipment. Thank you. Rogers for taping. Again, it will be available on Thursday evening on the channel, your Rogers channel, and YouTube on Friday. And to Reverend Judy. She's way more than an elevator operator tonight, so thanks to Reverend Judy for helping us out to rent the facility. And Cheryl has some more awards for you as well.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
Us a success story. I mean, we're learning so much about Allie and your experience and all the incredible things that you're learning and accomplishing. Can you tell us a little more about what goes on, some of the successes?
Sure. There's one young lady in particular that I would like to highlight. She left high school early. We said earlier you can stay in high school till you're 21 if you have special needs. And she was just not functioning well in high school. So her family pulled her out of school, and she came into our program, and she can't read or write, and a little bit of color blindness, and she had to have support of a one-to-one worker. And the one-to-one worker, I think, was about 2 years of our program, and then she didn't need the support anymore and joined the rest of the participants. Wow. And just really thrived, and her parents ended up renovating an old house in Collingwood, and she has moved on, which was one of our goals, is for the participants to live independently. Right. And she now lives with another young lady, and they get supported by one of the government programs where a couple days a week a worker will come in and help them go grocery shopping. But other than that, she's living independently. Wow. And it's, yeah, we're just so proud of her. Yeah.
That's a success story.
Right? Wow. I know, that's what we're striving for. And we have another participant, and this goes back a few years, and she has schizophrenia, and she was really doing well in our program, and she's now living, she was in a group home and now living independently in Owen Sound.
Beautiful.
I know, it's wonderful.
Beautiful.
Right?
Like you really are changing lives, not only for
lives.
these individuals, but for their families and their community as well.
Yeah, and it's such a relief for the parents.
Wow.
You know, it's a full-time job as a parent that has an adult child with special needs. So for them to have that sense of security and know that their child is safe.
And to be continued in their support, right?
Yeah.
Just in a lesser way, so that they can maintain that independence.
Exactly.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Allie, what is your favorite? I mean, again, it's been over 12 years where you've been a part of this incredible organization. What keeps you coming back? What's your favorite part?
So my favorite part of Events for Life has to be the staff. When you walk in the morning, the staff are so happy to see you. They make you feel like you're included. If you're upset about something, they will talk to you about it so that they can get to the bottom of why you're upset. And people like Barb, they're just amazing people. They come down, they make sure we're okay. If we get injured, they fill out an instant report form for us. They make sure that everything is going good during the day. And if you have any questions or concerns, you know you can always go to them.
Yeah, they're really an extension of your family, aren't they? That's incredible. So while we're on the topic of the staff, can you tell us a little bit, Barb, about your volunteers and what their job looks like? Who gets called to this kind of volunteer work that you've seen?
Right. Well, we actually have 10 employed staff members.
Wow.
So we have program facilitators that facilitate the program, and they make use of one of the big smart boards, which again makes us a little bit more unique, that everything is, you know, people can see, that's how they learn, people need to hear, that's how they learn, and some people need to do it. So the staff are really good at satisfying all three of those domains of learning. And then we provide one-to-one support and sometimes a 2-to-1 support for individuals that need, you know, just a little help, or maybe, you know, help in the community when they're out for a walk. And then our volunteers are amazing. And we've had volunteers come and go over the years, but they're part of our family. When we have large events during the year, they always come and support us. And the volunteers, if they have a specialty, like Louise, for example, is a photographer, so she comes and does digital camera photography with the participants. The things that they can produce is absolutely
So you're learning how to
phenomenal.
become a photographer. Okay.
Exactly. We've got musicians that will come and play. We've got some volunteers that are excellent cooks that will help them bake or cook, and volunteers will help with our special events. Yeah, so they're amazing, and again, they feel more fulfilled as a volunteer sometimes than I think the participants do. They love it.
Right. Yeah. What a great way to get involved in your community.
Exactly.
And to give back.
A good way to give back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Allie, what's something that